I've been doing a lot of very in-depth character analyses of very deep and intricate characters lately, but sometimes the characters I end up loving the most end up just being ones that make me smile when I see them. I feel like while I had ranked Kirby as my 11th favorite character all of those videos ago, he may be way, way higher for me, just for being an absolute comfort character, making me smile whenever I see him, even knowing that the character isn't anything too deep. In a similar vein, there's another character that's recently caught my attention for just being a joy to see the antics of. That character being the titular spooky cute ghost girl of the webcomic Erma by Brandon Santiago. Erma Williams is the half-human, half-yokai daughter of Sam Williams and Emiko Williams, née Yorimoto, and is basically the answer to the question, what if Sadako from The Ring was just a kid trying to fit in, make friends, and go to school in modern American suburbia? Throughout the earlier bits of the comic, that's exactly what Erma does. Normal kid things, but with her own adorably ghoulish twist, be it floating during a game of jump rope, using telekinesis to win snowball fights or dodgeball, or contorting her bodies in ways convenient to her that just so happen to be terrifying for everyone else. Reading and rereading the early chapters of Erma, they always put a smile on my face, seeing antics akin to a horror movie being done by a little girl who just doesn't know better than to use the vast powers at her disposal as she wishes. It's quite endearing to see, and that endearment is certainly fueled by Erma herself as a character. She's nothing too complex, but as a young kid, she doesn't need to be. She has the usual attributes that you'd expect from such a character. The easiest way to describe her is a bit of a troublemaker after all, and this combined with her ghoulish powers certainly creates trouble with a capital T. On top of that though, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that Erma has a heart of gold. She never intends to do any sort of harm beyond an occasional spook, even when the result does end up causing some harm. A lot of times, she even wants to use her powers to help or impress her friends and family, be it giving her cousin a piggyback ride as she spider crawls up a wall, or going through a TV to screw up a live broadcast football game just to give her dad's favorite team the edge. Speaking of her friends and family, Erma's relationships with them also make for some of the best parts of the comic. She has a loving relationship with her father, who is completely used to any and all shenanigans she can get up to, and her mother, who isn't immune to accidentally causing some trouble with her own ghostly powers. Both of them care for Erma deeply, wanting to do everything they can to give her a good life, and the feeling is mutual on Erma's end. There's also her babysitter Felicia, who, much like Sam, is amusingly unfazed by any of Erma's shenanigans, and ends up having an older sister sort of relationship with her, even teasing her a bit from time to time. In addition, there's her paternal relatives who treat her no differently just because she's a ghost and love her all the same, and her group of school friends who, despite initially being scared of her yokai nature, eventually grew to accept her and treat her little differently than any other student. It's just so heartwarming to see Erma's friend group grow and grow throughout the comic, more people coming to accept her even though she isn't human. All of this endearment comes from a character that never speaks, at least not that we're allowed to see. In the early days of the comic, Erma speaking was never super necessary because it focused more on her actions for the gags. As the comic went on and began to have more plot-centric narratives and story arcs, her silence almost became a running gag rarely acknowledged in-universe. Whenever Erma tries to speak, she's often conveniently cut off or decides to whisper to someone instead, or otherwise just speaks when the narrative isn't focused on her. It even reaches ahead during an April Fool's comic where Erma is undeniably speaking, but all the sound was blocked off by a window, and by the time she opened it, she had to get going. It feels like something that should be aggravating, but honestly this bit is just funny to me. And besides, while I can accept that she speaks within universe, I cannot possibly imagine what she would talk like. Not that I'd be opposed to figuring out, but she's already come so far in establishing herself as a character without needing to say a word to the readers. It's become custom to the point where words aren't necessary for her to continue to stand out. A lot of what I've said thus far comes from the earlier days in the comic, when it was more something akin to a comic strip. Starting in 2018, Brandon Santiago began to introduce much more story-driven arcs, as I mentioned previously. And these arcs have done a great job both grounding Erma's character and exploring it further. Given the emphasis on story in these parts, the comedy is certainly subdued, but I never felt like Erma was out of character in spite of that shift in genre. Instead, it felt like a gradual build-up from the various comic strip antics, eventually resulting in her being more mindful of how to use her powers. Even then though, she still has moments where she makes mistakes due to how young she is, but still, it's as though a small sense of maturity had been built up in her over these small handful of years and misadventures. As for how they expand her character, one arc explores both her relationship with Felicia while also delving into the irony of her obsession with a kids show called Warrior Unicorn Princess. and her embarrassment stemming from said obsession since everyone's meant to think she's this super scary horror kid, not a girl like any other her age that likes a cutesy unicorn show directed at her demographic. Another delves into her relationship with all of her school friends, and because they were willing to accept her, she was able to help another student realize she doesn't need to hide her own oddities. And finally, there's the ongoing set of arcs that have seen Erma visit Japan to meet her maternal relatives, a whole family of yokai. These arcs have done an excellent job expanding Erma, giving her new relationships and more small moments to show her personality. She certainly has bouts of frustration at her far more mischievous cousins, but overall, the dynamic she brought to this family was one of tenderness and sympathetic kindness for a household burdened with the crushing weight of expectation and the trauma that came with it. Erma has so many small, understanding moments with her aunts and uncles that ultimately further demonstrate Erma's heart of gold and near boundless love. In short, it's just very heartwarming to see. And again, all of this without dialogue. It's really amazing how endearing a character Erma is without needing to speak once, and whether she's helping her family through their issues simply with her company, or just enjoying her childhood her way, the comic never fails to put a smile on my face. And honestly, just the fact that Erma made me smile so often was all the reason I needed to make this video praising her and the comic she hails from. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you're one of my friends and just watching this video just because, please read Erma. I was specifically not as spoilery as I could have been. I mean, there aren't that many spoilers to be had, honestly, but I still wasn't that spoilery because I want you to read Erma. If you've already read Erma, then thank you for checking this out. Anyways, whatever analysis I do next, it'll probably end up being another long one, so we'll see when that comes out. But if you're interested in seeing more and seeing that fabled next analysis whenever that may come out, feel free to subscribe and like the video and all that other random YouTube stuff. I really appreciate it. Anyways, thank you for watching. See you later.